Anything else, Craig and Don? Thank you guys for coming out.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Just invite us down, and we'll be back and do it again.
Sounds good.
Awesome. If we could, before we sign off, we talked a little bit earlier about a certain Russian player that Don may have been involved with, and I know that the fans really want to hear this story about Alexander Mogilny, so if you don't mind indulging us.
The whole story?
The whole story.
How much time we got?
As much time as you want.
It's
on-demand radio. We can do it as long as we need to.
No, well, it's just... I don't know where you want me to start from the very beginning.
Please do.
Oh, right.
Oh, another drink, please.
Yeah, exactly. Order me a burger. I went over to the World Championships in Moscow and saw Alex and Fedorov play, and at that time they weren't drafting Russians, or they were just starting to get into it, and came back and we had an extra pick in the 5th round, and we took Alex. And then that next Christmas, he played the World Juniors in Anchorage, Alaska, and I introduced myself to him, and I gave him my card. He didn't speak English, or he pretended he didn't speak English, and I told him that we'd draft him, and if he wanted to talk or anything, just give me a call. And so I never heard from him. And then that spring, they played in the men's world championships in Stockholm, Sweden. And I got a call in my office from his agent. Actually, his wife's is the wife of his agent, because she could speak English, and she was from Sweden. But anyways, said Alex was interested in coming over, and so I said, "Well, how do I know him? Alex is Alex. It's just a phone call. I don't know who it is." So I had asked Alex a specific question at the World Juniors, and I could tell when I asked him, he knew what I was talking about. So I asked him, what's the answer to this question? And it came back the right answer, so I knew it was Alex. So I hung up and said, "Yeah, we'll come and get you, or we'll come over and try and work something out." So I hung up the phone, went to the general manager, Jerry Meehan, and that was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we were on a flight to Stockholm at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we went to Stockholm and checked into a hotel, made a call to the agent, set up a meeting that night. So we went to the agent's house, and Alex wasn't there. He was at the mall, because when the Russian team wins a championship, they give the players so much money in the currency of the country that they win the championship. So the whole team was at a mall shopping. And so we were going to wait for him to have dinner and talk. But then Sergei Fomichov, who was the agent, called home and said, "We got to do it now." So I'm driving the car. We drive to the mall, and we made arrangements for a certain door at the mall that they'd be coming out. And we drove up. They came out. They came running out. They were being chased, and we jumped in the car and we took off. And we had checked out of the hotel that we'd checked into, because we thought maybe we didn't know what was going on. But anyways, we drove around for a while. Then we drove to the U.S. consulate, dropped Jerry off. He went in to talk to the people in the consulate, and we drove around Stockholm just killing time. He was in there about, 4 hours. And then he came out, and we picked another hotel off the main drag and stuff, smaller one, and we drove to that hotel, stayed there. Jerry and I talked. He said they told us our lives were in danger, that the KGB was after us, and that we had to be very, very careful. And so that was an eye-opener. And so then we started. Jerry had to go back to the consulate because he had started the process, but he needed to do more work there. So the next day, I dropped him off at the consulate, and Alex wanted to call his parents. And at that time, they had rooms where you went to, and there'd be like a receptionist, and there'd be like 23 booths. And you go in, you give the receptionist your number. She would call the number, and then she'd tell you to go to booth 12. That was where the call would be. So Alex called home, and he he was talking for a few minutes, and then he came out, and lo and behold, he said, I've been cut off in broken English. So I knew, like, okay, he could speak a little English. And so the operator says, I'll get the number back. And so he goes back in the booth, and it's taking a little longer. And all of a sudden, Alex came out of the booth and says, they know where we are. And I said, okay, we got to get out of here. So we jump in the car, and I take him out, drive out in the country. And he explains to me that at that time, every call that went into Russia went to Moscow. His home was Khabarovsk, which is 7 hours flying time from Moscow. But all the calls went to Moscow because they could monitor where they're coming from. And that's why they went to Moscow. So they were on to us. They knew we were at that particular kiosk of phone booths. So we drove around the country again, and again picked up Jerry and went to a different hotel. And we were having trouble signing Alex. He wanted $1 million. And so eventually we worked that out, that we got him $1 million. And then we went to another hotel. We used different names. We rented a car, and we went to a real small hotel that had underground parking. We parked the car underneath and stuff, and we worked out the contract. And at that, we also asked him to bring Fedorov, but Fedorov was his roommate, and he didn't want to come. But anyways, at that point, we had a flight at 11 o'clock the next day coming back to the States. And we got up at like 5:30 in the morning and took a cab to the airport. Got there way earlier, and phoned the car company, told them where the car was. But anyways, Sergei picked up the paper, and in the paper they had 3 of the 4 hotels that we were at. They just didn't have the last one. So they were on our tail, but they weren't. We were ahead of
step ahead.
Yeah, step ahead of them. And so then we get on the plane, and we're the only people in business class. And Alex says, "Am I free?" And I said, "Well, not yet. We got to get to the States, right?" So we fly across the ocean, and then we land at JFK, and the pilot comes on as we're taxiing in. He says, everybody is to remain seated when we get to the gate. No one is to stand up or anything. Remain seated. So we taxi in a little further, and just before we dock, it comes on again and says, everybody is to remain seated. No one is to move. The FBI is coming on board. And just after he said that, the plane stopped, the door opened, and it's a 747, so 2 plainclothes FBI guys run down and close off the economy section on one side. 2 guys run down the other side, close off that side. And then the lead guy starts calling names, calls our 4 names, and, we get up, we go into the terminal. Jerry and I and Sergei get pushed aside to another area, and they take Alex away to interrogate him or to interview him.
Sure.
And so it was about 2 or 3 hours of interrogation, and we had a press conference there. And I think it still stands today. Jerry told me that it was the most press that's ever been in JFK Airport for anything. because it was just like the hall was just filled with reporters because it never had been done before.
Yeah.
No Russian athlete had ever defected. And so then we had to take a flight to Buffalo, and we flew to Buffalo, landed there, and we had made arrangements. I'd called my wife to have my car there, and Jerry had his car, and we had another car there as just another car. But anyways, they got to Buffalo, and we had to interrogate Alex again for the local FBI. And so Alex goes in, and we're in the basement of the old airport, and after about 20 minutes, Alex comes out, and he looks at me, and he says, "You speak better Russian than he does." And so anyways, we decide that the press is probably going to follow Jerry's car. And so we had the three cars kind of in the basement. So I took Alex in my car, Jerry got in his car, and we had another car driven by one of our people. And we all took off, and we went in different directions. And everybody followed Jerry, which we thought would happen. So Alex ended up staying in my house, and we had actually we were out one time, and Alex and I were out, and my wife got a knock on the door. Oh no, Alex was home actually, and Diane got a knock on the door, and there was a Russian gentleman, and he wanted to speak to Alex, and my wife smartly said, "Well, he's not home." And he says, "I know he's here." And Diane says, "No, he's not home." And Alex is in the background going, No. Because I don't think he was a reporter, which he said he was. So anyways, we shoot him away, and Alex told us that, he'd been declared a defector, said he was in the Red Army. He's never had a gun in his hand, and they'd sentence him to death. And that people were still trying to find out where he was, and so we kept him hidden pretty well in our house for 2 months or so. And it was very unnerving experience. You're driving around in a foreign country, and you got people chasing you, and I guess I didn't feel as endangered as I was till after. When you found out how close they were, and what they were known to do, and it was pretty. It was a scary experience. It took a lot of courage for Alex to do what he did. He's a 19-year-old kid.
Sure.
Think about it. If you're 19, you're going to go to Russia. Don't speak the language. Don't know anything about it. All you know how to do is play hockey, and you're going to leave your home. You're going to leave your parents. You may never see them again. I was like, that's a huge gutsy move. Alex is a very smart person and a great talented player. Like he was, but he had the courage to do what nobody else did, and it kind of opened the doors for everybody else. It was quite the experience. And Alex, he didn't know what to do when we would take him to the grocery store, and when I was there, when I saw him play, and it was still the Iron Curtain was up.
Sure.
And the big mall that's beside the Kremlin now, there was three places in it. There was a place that sold bread, there was a place that sold meat, and there was a souvenir store in that whole mall, which is huge. It's like a Galleria mall. And when I was walking around the Red Square there, people always had a bag with them. Everybody had a bag with them, and I wondered why. And then all of a sudden, I saw everybody going to the mall. So I followed and see what was going on. And they literally just got in line. The whole length of the mall, they just stood in line. And they got to the front of the line, a person was there, and it happened to be meat. They had a brown paper wrap bag of meat. They just put it in the bag, and they walked away. The next person could come up. They didn't even know what they were getting, but they had to get there or they wouldn't get it. It was amazing how little they had. And the people over there were really nice. It was a nice experience. I was in the Hotel Russia. At that time, it was the largest hotel in the world. And it was just big enough for a bed, and they had a TV, and on the TV they had it in different languages. If you're not watching it, unplug it because it's a fire hazard. It was quite the experience, and like I say, it took Alex a lot of nerve and intestinal fortitude to do what he did, and that was briefly. But you can see it, the documentary, The Defector, online. Sure. And it's I've never seen it, but they said it's very good, so it's worth watching.
So you started playing hockey probably sometime in the 60s. Then you went through this experience with Mogilny in the 80s. Like when you started playing hockey and being from Toronto. And
I'm not from Toronto.
I'm sorry. My mistake.
London.
Being from Canada, and
good recovery.
Yeah, thank you.
Nailed it.
This country that brought us this great sport. Did you ever, as a child, as a teenager, as a professional hockey player, imagine that this would be the sport that unified the world the way that it did in this story that you just told?
No, I had no idea. No idea.
And so, experiencing what you have. Is there anything that you can say to describe how it feels to be part of that sport that has done that for this planet?
Well, it's a great privilege just to be able to say, I played the game and I played at the highest level possible, and played with and against a lot of great players and a lot of great people, and so I can't really describe all my feelings, but it's just an amazing feeling. I'm a very lucky person.
We're very lucky to have you. I can't think of a better way to end. So,
thank you, everyone.
Yep. How about that mic drop,
listening.
everybody?
Yeah. Everyone for coming out tonight. Yeah, it's been awesome.
So, thank you again to Craig. Thank you again to Don. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
To everybody. We really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for coming out. We are the 716 Sports Podcast. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter, 716 Sport Podcast. Again, make sure you check out the new project, fandoozy.com. Sign up today for that, and don't forget those promo codes, Unified and Hockey.
And thank you to Lockhouse Distillery for having us here and providing us with a lot of awesome spirits, some of which are going to be released very soon that I've been enjoying over the course of the podcast. So definitely check out their new line of stuff. It's always a good time down here. And we can't be more grateful to them letting us use their space to conduct this show here tonight.
So we will be back in a couple weeks. Bill season, it's about to start.
Got a college football preview show coming up, so stay tuned for that.
Lots of good stuff coming up. Guys, thank you for listening to the 716 Sports Podcast.
Good night, Buffalo.
Thank you for listening to the 716 Sports Podcast. If there is a world's greatest podcast, this was probably it. Thank you to our sponsors, Lockhouse Distillery and Big Ditch Brewing Company. Tune in next week where I'm sure we'll continue to be the world's greatest podcast. Go Sabres! Go Bills! Go 716!